is February 13th, 2017. This is the fourth public session of the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Secretary, if you would please take the roll. Oh, excuse me. We met in executive session at 6:30 this evening to discuss a real estate matter. Now, if you will please take the roll.
Will do. Mr. D'Amelio.
Here.
Mr. McCluskey.
Here.
Mr. Siegel.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Holmes. He is here. He's in the
He is
back
here,
row.
yeah.
Mr. McGarity is in transit. Mr. Wexler.
Here.
Mr. Oliva.
Here.
And Mr. Connell.
Here. If everyone would please rise if they can, and tonight I would like to welcome Reverend Mary Jane Kirby of the 101-year-old United Methodist Church.
101. Thank you for remembering that. Good evening, everyone. Let us pray. Lord our God, we thank you for gathering us together tonight, for there is work that you have called your people to do, and we thank you for the community that we're a part of. We pray for your blessing on each and every one who is serving here as our leaders in the community. We pray for those who serve so well as our public servants. Keep them safe and following blessing and direction and strength for your people. We ask that you would guide the conversation tonight. We pray for your blessing for each one that is here, that we may have an ear to one another, that we may understand your grace, and that we may live in ways that honor you. We pray for you to help us to be there to help one another. And we thank you again for your grace. In your name, O Lord, we pray, and we say amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. Hey, donation to the police. Ready for that, or you want to do the next one? You doing that first? I don't know.
That's from the 5K run. The proceeds went to that. And we got a letter just saying thank you.
Do you want me to hold this until next month, or you want to?
Yeah, maybe hold it. I was hoping to get Chad Brooks here.
Okay.
This
Okay.
is idea.
So then we'll take it off. Okay. Thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda, we're going to strike this evening and move that to next month. That was the Police Department Memorial. Item number 3, Mr. Zlotnick on the Township Auditor's update.
I reviewed the financial disbursements for the period commencing January 10th, 2017 and ending February 13th, 2017. I raised certain questions and asked for substantiation of certain items. All the questions and the substantiation were provided to my satisfaction. Therefore, in my opinion, there were no irregularities. I would just like to thank the township and the commissioners for sending me a basket of flowers in memory of my mom who passed away on the 2nd. I much appreciate it. Thank
Our
you.
condolences. Thank you very much. Matthew Cook here this evening?
Yes.
Okay. Matthew Cook, Eagle Scout, please come forward. And Mr. D'Amelio, I believe you have a proclamation.
Yes, would you mind joining?
Okay, would you like his parents to come up? His parents, do you want them?
Oh, yeah, his parents should come up, sure. We have a proclamation here for Matthew Cook. Whereas the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Haverford, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, takes great pleasure in acknowledging notable achievements of young adults in the community, and whereas the Board of Commissioners wish to applaud Matthew Cook of the Boy Scouts of America, Troop 463, for attaining the rank of Eagle Scout and completing his Eagle Scout project. Whereas Matthew's Eagle Scout project was to design and build the Learning Garden at St. Pius and Broomall. The Learning Garden consists of 5 raised garden beds where parishioners and students grow and harvest vegetables that are donated to a local food bank. And whereas Matthew has been an active member of Troop 463 since the spring of 2010, In this troop, Matthew at various times held the positions of assistant patrol leader and patrol leader. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Haverford, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that said Board of Commissioners hereby congratulates Matthew Cook for your many contributions to your community. With your long hours and dedicated work, our blessings go with you as you face new opportunities and challenges. Proclaimed this 8th day of January 2007, Township of Haverford Board of Commissioners, Chris Connell, Senior, the President, and Mario Oliva, Vice President. Matthew, congratulations. This is the second time Matthew's receiving this. We were invited, Jimmy and I went to St. Pius, where they had a wonderful ceremony, a beautiful lunch, and I thank you for that. But I'm going to, Matthew, if you can, after we take a couple pictures, talk about what you did, that'd be great.
Sure.
Oh, over here. Matthew, talk about the Quran. It was interesting. It was very interesting.
Okay, so there was many things I had to do to become an Eagle Scout over my 7-year involvement in the Boy Scouts, but the final thing is a project that was mentioned in the proclamation. So at St. Pius, they had a garden committee, and they approached me about making or designing a garden that parishioners and students would help maintain, and then all that food would be harvested for the poor. So it was a really long process, a lot of hard work, and eventually we kind of designed everything from scratch and bought all the lumber, got donations, and created this this garden in the back of St. Pius that it's still running today. Maybe not as well as it should, but it's getting the job done, and it's still working today. So, yeah.
Thank you.
It's always nice to recognize our youth in the community. Okay, next on the agenda, we have any Commissioner Committee updates. If anybody, we did have that at the work session. If anybody wants to reflect or add to anything at this time? Nope, okay. Let's see, we have the continuation of the litter control discussion. Let's, you know what, let's bring that up if we need to when we bring that up for motion. Number 6 on the agenda is Citizens Forum. It's 20 minutes registered speakers and 20 minutes for agenda items. At this time, I would like to ask former Commissioner Jane Hall to please come up to the podium, who has registered to speak this evening.
First on the agenda, lucky girl tonight. Matthew, beautiful job. I love a garden. It's wonderful for the community, and it serves so many people. Congratulations, really nicely done. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I should say, ladies, thank you for some time tonight. I had an interesting phone call this evening that was somewhat expected, but incredibly disappointing to me. I spoke with Christine Ferris, and she told me that she is retiring. As you well know, and thank you, Commissioner Wexler, I was the liaison in the library board when I sat on the board. I have been so pleased at what happened over the years that I was commissioner and worked tirelessly with all of you to accomplish so much for the library. In fact, Christine told me that this week we will find out about the Keystone Grant. I'm saddened and upset, and I'm here tonight as a former commissioner, but I'm also here as a resident of this township. We have one library. I've said it so many times, one library. We need desperately to make sure that this moves forward in a professional and wonderful way for this community. I've watched Lower Merion Township rebuild all their libraries, and it's been incredible to watch. A great dedication to the community, and has really served them well, which I will get to in a moment. I originally started the library long before I was commissioner for a search for a new director. In that search, I remember sitting in about my third meeting, and I looked around and I saw Christine Ferris. And I said, why don't you just be director? And she said, I'm not ready. So we searched and we searched and we searched, and we finally landed on a gentleman that was there for a short time. And then Christine stepped in. She has been outstanding, to say the least. She has built an incredible relationship with this township, this community, and with the library, the Delaware Valley Library system. We have, as she's told you many, many times, an incredible system over there, and the community loves it. Having her step down, I believe she's stepping down for retirement, but for a myriad of other reasons. I don't want to go too far into this tonight, but what I saw this year and in the last 2 years was somewhat of a manipulation of power by the board that sits at the library currently. I saw Christopher Blackwell taken out and Mary Shea that came in as vice president taken out in a very structured takeout by that board. It was so disheartening to me, and I am so upset to this day. And I now have watched the bylaws be changed in an emergency meeting in December prior to the reorganization meeting in January, and it was extremely disturbing to me. As a citizen and someone that works within this community and represents the community every day, I think it's really important with what we have in front of us with this library to get a strong board in place. We had incredible candidates this year. They were strong, they were smart, they're professional, and they came forward and wanted to help our library, and they did not get a position. It's disheartening to me, and you all know what I'm talking about and what we need to do. We have one library. I've watched Leadington Library bring Bryn Mawr together. I never thought I could see such development and growth and such an anchor for a community as I've seen with Leadington. I show houses in Penwyn, I show them in Gladwin, I show them in Bryn Mawr, and all of those libraries have been done. I do relocation for real estate every day. I have a relocation client tomorrow coming from Pittsburgh, 5 hours in the car with me, and what do they ask me? What are the schools? What are the neighborhoods? Where are the libraries? Where do I shop? Where do I take my kids? The real estate community is on the front lines for all of you every day. We do everything we can to make sure that people feel strong and confident when they buy real estate in these communities. Our library is a cornerstone. We need desperately to make sure that it moves forward in a positive manner, in a strong manner, and that we send the right message to our community, and that we send the right message to the people who wish to volunteer, and that we have a strong board, a cohesive board, a professional board, and people that can go out there and do the right thing and not lose people like Christine Ferris. Please acknowledge what has happened. Think about what has happened and try to take some steps as the commissioners, and you can do it, and I know you can, to make sure that we make the good, smart, professional, and steps with integrity going forward. I don't have much else to say except that I love this community. I've told you that. I've lived here for over 32 years. I know that you're doing great things. I know you can do great things with the library, and I'd ask you to do that. And think of me when you make these decisions. And if you want to call me, because I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. The second resident signed up for a citizens forum is Michael Levin.
I have 3 points to bring up with you tonight. I've noticed that there is a Commissioners Committee titled Health and Welfare. I also have noted this evening that when committees were introduced, there was no message from any of the committees I hope this will change in the future. This committee, Health and Welfare, is supposed to coordinate its efforts with the Haverford Alliance for Drug Awareness. The Haverford Alliance for Drug Awareness should cast a wider net than simply the drugs of choice, so to speak, of dealers these days. They should emphasize some aspect of tobacco, which has not come down to the township level in 57 years. Not only tobacco, but e-cigarettes, which are regulated the same as tobacco. Don't leave this on the stores to sell them to minors or not. You need to be aware of this because this is a gateway drug. In fact, the e-cigarettes have already been linked to one disease of the lungs which cannot be cured. I won't mention what it is, but you probably know about it. So I'm encouraging the Health and Welfare Committee to do a little bit more than oversee the Haverford Alliance for Drug Awareness, if that is indeed what they are going to do. There are other issues besides, which are environmental issues. You know about these. They concern the Superfund site, among others. My second point is, if you ever are involved in an automobile accident, and the officer comes up to you and says something to the effect of, since nobody was injured, this is a courtesy call, don't for one moment think that you have to tip him. This is a responsibility of the police officers, at least of Haverford Township, and according to what I have found out, every police department operates in a different way, depending upon the scene of the accident. But I'm telling you not to refuse to have a police officer investigate. In fact, you should be the first ones to do it because the story can become very garbled. You may not get the information, not even a driver's license or registration, if you choose not to press the issue on having an officer present. The third point is related to a piece of property that you all own, and that is concrete. You all own concrete curbs. And if those are broken, you find out rather quickly, before or later, that, as I did, that the concrete is your responsibility. And it has gotten quite pricey these days, as you might imagine. It is not unreasonable to put 5 figures worth of concrete into your curbs and sidewalk and driveway and never turn back. Haverford does not seem to have a list of contractors for concrete. There are words of mouth that are stated. So-and-so does concrete. Try and get them. You could spend as long as a year to making inquiries and not having anyone give you an estimate which is on paper. In fact, the claim is often made, yeah, we'll give you an estimate on paper when you decide you want us to do the work. How will you ever decide that? So the Codes Enforcement Office, it appears, should do more than simply put a note in the monthly magazine of Haverford Township. It should assemble a list. For example, if I wanted a surveyor in Ardmore or Narberth, I could get a list from Lower Merion, which lists Yerkes, Yon, and other surveyors who would come out and do the job, and it would vary depending upon who you got as to what the figures are. You have no way of knowing until you actually go to contract on it. So, 3 points. Health and welfare is more than just overseeing a committee that does something. Have an agenda, please. Second, the officers' reports for accident are extremely important. in a case where an officer does not investigate, you have no right to see their license or their insurance certificate. According to what you read in on the Motor Vehicle Bureau, yes, you're entitled to see it if a police officer asks for it. It is unclear whether you can ask for it without making a citizen's arrest. You have a police officer here today who probably could answer this a little bit more than I could based upon my inquiries, but perhaps Officer Hagan would try if you asked him. Third, on the concrete, that's extremely important, and it should be very clear to you that concrete curbs can be destroyed by contractors. It can be destroyed by public service vehicles. And believe it or not, that contract for that curbing is covered by your homeowner's insurance. So I'm suggesting to you that if you know that you're going to get a public works project coming through, lower your deductible to a $500 deductible and watch out. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Next, we're going to do the 20 minutes for agenda items. And I'll start with this side of the room on the first row, if anybody would like to come up and speak for 3 minutes on agenda items. The second row, third row, last row. On this side of the room, first row, third row. There being none. Mrs. Hall, thank you very much for your kind words for Christina Farris. Actually, the board, when finding out that she was retiring, was very, we were all very surprised about it. The board has recently been discussing the library issues, and I can say at this time that one of which that we are all in agreement, we all are in support of the library. All 9 in recent discussions are all in support of the library and all moving forward with the library. So your thoughts, what you said this evening absolutely will be taken into consideration. But please know that nobody is against the library, the one library that we have. Please, it's the truth. If anybody would like to pick up on that, express themselves?
I certainly agree with you, President Connell, that I believe everybody on this board is dedicated to improving the library where it is and improving the library in terms of the board keeping a closer eye on things and taking a more active involvement, especially while it's about to embark on what might be, other than the original construction of the library and the original configuration of its board, this is probably the most important time in its history in terms of generating funds for the construction work and what we hope is completely, renovating and presenting the library new. So I've heard nothing but support on this board, and Mrs. Hall should feel energized that this board is in favor of improving things there and improving that library. And I appreciate her comments. And it would be. It was modest of Jane to note all the other excellent candidates we had for the library board. We had another excellent candidate for the library board, and I hope all of them are people we continue to consider for any positions that open up. So, let's see what we can do.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Mr. Levin, as far as the Health and Welfare Committee goes, it is a new committee. Thank you very much for expressing yourself about that committee. It is new and it is growing. One of the main things that when putting the committee together, we did absolutely want them to be partners with the Haverford Alliance for Drug Awareness. Not that it will be limited to that, there are many avenues it can pursue, but it's a brand-new committee, and it's growing. So yes, Commissioner McCluskey is chair of that committee, and his committee will be getting together to discuss all the things that the Health and Welfare Committee can do. Commissioner, do you wish to express yourself on that?
Sure. Just to clarify, the Haverford Alliance for Drug Awareness is not at all connected to the township.
Right.
We're working we would work in partnership with them and hopefully other organizations that sort of fit with the overall umbrella of health and wellness and where that committee goes. And as we're developing it and sort of pushing it forward, we will produce information about it and share that. But I think at this point, President Connell has, in the full support of the board, is interested in dealing with the issues of addiction and heroin and opioid addiction specifically. And we'll certainly take into consideration any other health and welfare issues that are presented to this board, and considering also e-cigarettes. But, we'll get there.
The concrete issue is, as far as a list, I guess you go to the Public Works, or not Public Works, yes, Public Works Department perhaps. I know as far as recommending a contractor, usually government agencies do not do that because it shows partiality. I know in the newsletter there are a lot of advertisements that go out, and perhaps there's a contractor in there. If we can put a list of contractors that Haverford Township has registered, that's probably another matter we could look into. But as far as a recommendation who is better than the other, it's usually government agencies don't do that because it does show partiality, which government agencies are not allowed to do. Deputy Chief, if you would like to come forward, please, in reference to the police concern.
Concerning police actions, we do respond to all actions within Haverford Township. It does vary throughout the state. Some departments do not respond to it, but our recommendation is you always call 911. Police officer will come out and take the report. It is a state law that under Pennsylvania Department of Motor Vehicles or the Vehicle Code that you have to exchange information. If you are involved in an accident, you have to exchange information. If you don't, you're in violation of summary offense. So that even makes it more important to call the police if you're involved in an accident. That's all I have.
Yeah. Does anybody have anything else for the betterment?
Could I approach the podium?
Yes, by all means. Commissioner D'Amelio has asked if he could, as a citizen, come up and speak this evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the board for allowing me to do this. I had a resident contact me, very upset about what's going on in our country, specifically with respect to President Trump. And I wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about this for a second. She was concerned mainly about this board and how this board's reacting to President Trump. And I wanted to take the time to let her know that President Trump does not speak for me, or I believe anyone on this board. Neither did any president or any elected official will speak for me as a commissioner or as a private citizen. I believe that the recent flawed executive action banning anyone from several Muslim countries from entering the United States was quickly enacted. Confusion and disorganization was rampant throughout the airports in the United States. Muslims with green cards were denied entry into the United States. In addition to that, an Iraqi man who fought for this country alongside servicemen and women was denied access to this country. I was embarrassed as an American for President Trump's Twitter usage. I think it's unprofessional and unpresidential. But in my opinion, there are some individuals calling for a military coup against the President of the United States and this government, and I think that's tantamount to treason. That's not who we are as Americans. I believe that that's why we have elections. I think the freedom of speech and protesting is fine. That's what we're about. That's what we should do. But we shouldn't destroy communities while we're doing that. I believe that members of this board would hold the President of the United States accountable if he violates the Constitution of the United States or the Bill of Rights. That's something that we've talked about many times on this board. This board has worked in a bipartisan manner for many years. We've accomplished many great things, and as you heard, the library is one of the things that we're trying to work on. We passed an anti-discrimination for homosexuals in this township. We're one of the few communities that did so when we felt that maybe it should be statewide, but we did it here because we believed it was the right thing to do, and it was the right thing to do. There are immigration issues, certainly there are, and it's nothing new that these immigration issues have not come up in the past. President Clinton talked about immigration during a State of the Union speech, and so did President Obama. And I'll read what President Obama said. Today, our immigration system is broken, and everybody knows it. When I took office, I committed to fixing this broken immigration system, and I began by doing what I could to secure our borders. Today, we have more agents and technology employed to secure our southern borders than any time in our history. I want to say more about this because it generates the most passion and controversy.
Oh, there it is.
Even as we are a nation of immigrants, we are also a nation of laws. Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous. You can look this up. This has been, I'll finish up. I'll just be real quick.
Thank you.
You know, we talked about the Haverford Alliance for Drug Alliance. I mean, drugs are pouring into this country. Heroin is ruining the very fabric of this nation. And we need to look at anyone who comes into this country that commits a felony, we need to deal with them if they're undocumented. And the presidents, Clinton, President Obama, have all said that. Undocumented Americans who committed felonies will be sent back. I believe that this board, if the President of the United States today violates Constitution again or the Bill of Rights, that I would ask this board to send him a letter saying that we are opposed to his actions. So we work together, and I believe we would work together with that. And I understand there's anxiety. I understand many residents are facing anxieties and feel very passionate about these. Well, we do as well. And I thank you for allowing me to speak this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next on the agenda, item number 7 is approval of the minutes. There's the reorganization meeting of January, and there's also the regular meeting of January on these approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. D'Amelio.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the reorganization meeting minutes of January 3rd, 2017, and the regular meeting minutes of January 9th, 2017.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Oliva.
Mr. President, could we consider these separately, because I have to abstain from the second ones because I wasn't at the meeting?
I agree
I
with that.
just noted my vote that it's, I vote for one and abstain on the other.
Okay, very good. Then what we'll do is the first one, we'll take a vote on the reorganization meeting of January 3rd, 2017. Mr. Secretary, would you see that that reflects that?
Certainly will.
And then any questions? Jim, that's okay that way?
That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. Please take the roll for the reorganization meeting.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry's not here. Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes. Second motion on the table is a regular meeting minutes of January 9th, 2017. Any questions or concerns? There being none, take the roll, please.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
I must abstain for having been absent from the meeting.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes. Item number 8 on the agenda is approval of warrants. Mr. Holmes, from the Finance
Mr.
Department.
President, thank you. Mr. President, I move that we approve warrant number 2 of 2017 totaling $4,370,520.64, comprising the general and sewer fund payroll for January 12, 2017 in the amount of $888,391.50, the general and sewer fund payroll for January 26 of 2017 in the amount of $640,723.24. General fund disbursements number 2 of 2017 in the amount of $1,897,565.32. The sewer fund disbursements number 2 of 2017 in the amount of $147,591.28. Community Development Block Grant Fund disbursement number 2 of 2017 in the amount of $54,529.79. The Home Grant Fund number 2 of 2017 in the amount of $65,019.75. Capital Projects Fund disbursement number 2 of 2017 in the amount of $666,698.48. And a credit card statement ending January 27 of 2017 in the amount of $10,001.28.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Oliva. Discussion?
Mr. President, our township auditor has reviewed all of these warrants. Any questions that were raised by him were answered to his satisfaction by township personnel. He has recommended that we approve the warrants. I accept his recommendation and recommend to the rest of my colleagues that they do the same.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Any further? There being none, please take the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
And Mr. Connell?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 9, ordinance P1 2017 is animal control. Mr. Siegel from the Ordinance Committee.
Motion to adopt the first reading of ordinance number P1-2017, amending and supplementing ordinance number 1960, which was adopted June 30, 1986, then known as the General Laws of the Township of Haverford, further amending and supplementing Chapter 49 Animals.
Second.
Okay, it was in unison.
It was like a jump ball.
Same.
Steve can have the
No,
second.
no,
Where's
it's okay.
the possession arrow going?
Seconded by Mr. D'Amelio, and discussion.
Yeah, just if we can have Lori just clarify one more time what we're doing here for the residents.
Okay, Mr. Siegel, do you have anything you wish to add?
No, I was just going to say that it did remove the, this version includes the revisions that we had discussed at the work session, removing the sign, cleaning up the language about canines, and is exactly,
And the setbacks.
and the setbacks.
Yeah.
That's all there.
Mrs. Widow?
Yes, this is an amendment adding to the animal control provisions in the code by providing minimum standards for the use of electronic devices to control an animal, a dog.
Just to reiterate, I just asked Dan, it's 5 feet from
The sidewalk.
the sidewalk, right?
Correct.
Anything?
I mean, to the extent that somebody didn't watch our work session, just so everybody
right,
realizes.
right.
Yeah, I
Right.
think it's worth noting. We're adding a requirement for anybody that uses invisible fences that the invisible fence boundary end at least 5 feet from a sidewalk, so that any bounding dog will stop well short of scaring the living daylights out of somebody on the sidewalks. We don't have the same concerns in backyards and side yards because those neighbors, we assume, already have a relationship with the scary dog and already know that
Cujo.
it gets stopped. Yeah, Cujo already stops short of their property before he eats Fifi or anything like that. But it's not unusual. This is a provision. This 5-foot setback is a provision used in numerous municipalities. And any discussions we had about requiring a sign to indicate to people that that there is an invisible fence in place. We figured the need for that sign was really ameliorated by the fact that we had a 5-foot setback, so we discussed removed the sign from that ordinance.
A prominent display,
And yeah, prominently displayed sign, yeah, which we get.
not a 3x5 car that taped to the tree. Any further? Thank you, Mrs. Witta. There being none, please take the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey.
Yes.
Mr. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Wexler.
Yes.
Mr. Oliva.
Yes.
Mr. Connell.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 10 is P2 2017 litter control. Again, Mr. Siegel from the Ordinance Committee.
Motion to adopt the first reading of ordinance number P2-2017, further amending and supplementing Chapter 111 littering by amending the littering regulations.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lewis. Discussion? Comment?
I'll just add, my concern continues to be on this one about, as the chief indicated during the work session, it'd be a very difficult ordinance to enforce. And I understand that we have an existing ordinance on the books that is also difficult to enforce, but I don't know if that necessarily changes the point of view of the one we then would be voting for. And when you have things like that are difficult to enforce, I think we then put the police in a difficult situation whereby it necessarily is going to involve them doing sort of selective enforcement as to how it is applied in practicality. And that's the concern that I have about this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. McCluskey. Mr.
Mr.
Holmes?
President, I think, right now it's against the law for me to take a bucket of trash and dump it into my neighbor's lawn. And if nobody sees me do it, but I do it every week on the day before trash day, eventually the police are going to come and see me because what I'm doing breaks the law and it's risen to the level of really hassling somebody. We're doing this for the benefit of those people that have tried to get handbills stopped from being put in their yards. They've put up signs. They've done whatever they can. They do call the police. The police have seen the vans that go around and distribute these things and don't necessarily have the specific grounds to stop that van that day and say, hey, stop, get out of town, and here's a ticket on your way out of town. So I'm not concerned about selective enforcement of this. I think these guys need articulation of a specific standard so that when they see the handbill on somebody's lawn who has a sign up that says no handbills, please, and they see that same van that day distributing them in the neighborhood or another neighborhood, I think we've given them the opportunity to tell those people to stop doing it and pay closer attention. Either write them a significant ticket or give them a warning and be prepared the next time they do it. So I was here at the same meeting, obviously, and the chief, said these are hard to enforce, but I didn't get the message that he didn't want us to do it. So I'm as I've said before, I'm not necessarily the guy up here constantly increasing police powers, but I just saw this one at the end of the day better for the residents than not. So I'll support it.
That wasn't a cry of admission about your neighbor, was it?
Yeah, how about that? It was not.
Includes a sign, right?
Gentlemen, anything further?
Yeah, I just think it's impossible to enforce. It's the people who are throwing these things out of vans are coming through at night. They're coming through in the early hours of the morning, 4 o'clock, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night this time. And I prefer, my desire would be that as a township, we say you can't throw stuff on people's lawns. That would be my, I would like to see Haverford Township take the lead and prohibit non-solicited subscriptions to be thrown in our streets and all that. Just the other day, these things get thrown out Wednesday nights in my neighborhood. I take a walk at night, walk the dog before I go to, there's paper all over the neighborhood. These guys throw these things out of these little flimsy bags, and the paper just goes all over the street. It's an eyesore. It goes into yards. It's in the street. It's impossible to expect our police or anybody to enforce this. It makes us look good because we look like we're reactive to people that have complained. We can point to something that's not enforceable. But I think my desire would be to see this prohibited as a township to throw unsolicited, non-subscription stuff. I see most of these things are supermarket stuff. The other vendors come in bulk mail. That seems to be, this must be a less expensive way to get advertisements thrown on our lawn. Half of them end up in a recycling bin because they're all over the street. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Mr. President? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Mr. Siegel?
While in an ideal situation, Commissioner Wexler's idea may work, there are constitutional issues.
Yeah.
When I was looking at this ordinance, I did go upon and research. There's a number of cases dealing with commercial speech, political speech. We can't regulate political speech, of course, and religious speech. But a limitation that would be a complete ban is probably one that would place us in court. And that's what I don't think any of us want to see.
And my objection is these are all commercial advertising. They're Giant, Acme, CVS, Rite Aid. They're all they're not First Amendment issues. The First
Well,
Amendment
no,
people,
they are First Amendment issues. They're just not necessarily the Federalist Papers, but they still are entitled to some First Amendment.
As far as I'm concerned, throwing something in my street because it never makes it to the lawn is littering. So.
I tend to agree with Mr. Wexler. I like his solution better, and I guess I would ask our solicitor what his view is and whether we could do some research and confirm that we cannot.
I could definitely come back and give you, a definite answer, but I think that Mr. Siegel is right, and there are several different constitutional protections that are afforded to both the commercial speech and the private speech and the political speech. So
Even though it is in effect littering. I mean,
No, placing it in my door, I have no
Yeah.
objection to, but throwing
Yeah.
it in the street where I live and want to have a beautiful street or my
Yeah.
lawn and see the stuff blow all over. Like if they throw it tonight, we got 30 miles an hour wind today.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. So
Yeah,
that's all.
I agree with Bill. I mean, if we could do something, as Bill suggested.
aggressive.
He's right. I've seen the van come up the street, and I've seen them just throw it on both sides and just throw it indiscriminately everywhere.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Let me make a suggestion. It would seem that for some people on this board, this ordinance doesn't go far enough. For another person on this board, they're concerned that the ordinance shouldn't be passed at all. It's my recommendation that we pass this ordinance. Now, if our solicitor comes back to us and says that we can institute a ban that will survive, constitutional scrutiny, then we can amend this further to make it stricter. But what I wouldn't want to see us do is not do this right now, because we have dreams of instituting what might be the first ban in Pennsylvania against the distribution of commercial handbills and literature. So I wouldn't let and I've said this before, let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. This is a step toward dealing with the folks that distribute these things. And if we can make it stricter, our solicitor will report back to us that we can make it stricter. But I wouldn't let this go by.
I think that makes sense. That's a good approach.
I don't have a problem with that, but
I agree with that.
Larry, Lori, do you know who's doing this? And you can let them know that we passed this evening? And if they see a sign, they have to.
Do we know the name of the company who does this? Or-
Right.
Well, let's make, before Lori answers, just so that the public understands and that we all understand here, it's everybody's duty to know the law. And these folks that are distributing these things, it's their, we can put out a notice on our website that says the distribution of handbills is prohibited for any house that has a sign that says don't distribute anything or put anything in my lawn. But we don't have an affirmative duty to contact anybody and tell them, that this is now the law. We're conducting an open meeting in the world that everybody could see, that the newspapers are going to report on, and
This
that's
is our
how-
notification.
That's exactly right. This is the notice to the world that this is now an actionable offense in Haverford Township. And so they'll figure it out pretty quickly the first time the police stop them and say,
Mr. Siegel, you have a follow-up?
There's a couple of things. One, I'm happy to share with Mr. Byrne the research I did. Second, it's amazing how companies know, and the best example was we had the problem a few years ago with shopping carts. And we passed an ordinance that limited where shopping carts could be, and there'd be fines. and the former Superfresh was the biggest violator. As soon as that ordinance was passed, it was amazing how they had people in the parking lots and they were maintaining the carts, and I never heard from Mr. Gentili. I don't know that we ever had a problem after that, did we?
Very rarely.
So they learned very quickly. And finally, and this will be the second time tonight, and I don't think this will ever happen probably again in my life, I'm going to use the same quote from Ronald Reagan.
It's really going to snow.
Just did to me.
But he said when talking about, it was in the context of budgets, you take what you can, you take the incremental step and you can always go back later for more. And that was his philosophy of budgeting and other things, and it makes a lot of sense.
Well, my frustration is more the fact that on the bag that comes, there is an 800 number, and I have spoken to the company. It's down in Lower Delaware County in the Ridley area, and you have the ability to unsubscribe from their stuff. They'll take your name and number. I've made multiple requests for several of my senior citizens. It's been totally ignored. It's just like junk mail. You have the ability to unsubscribe. These are advertisements. They're not free speech. They're not political statements. It's junk mail and advertising from commercial vendors that's being thrown on our front lawns, and that's what bears my frustration. That we have tried to unsubscribe to this for several people over the last year, and the deliverers don't get. I stopped one of the deliverers one night. He said he doesn't care. He gets paid for as many as he throws. So that's.
If I may, then, the provisions in the old ordinance were limited to certified mail. There's nothing that prevents us from also including the use of certified mail as another alternative in this ordinance. We removed it, but there's certainly nothing that says we couldn't add that in as a third section that alternatively, and I could make that motion here if that would help, because I do know that the bags do say the name of the company, or some of them do. We get some that don't, that just say, the name of the supermarket, but others do.
On the bag, it has the marketing company that does the advertising.
Well, can we force them to put them at the door and rather?
I could live with that.
Yeah.
Or at least rubber
And then
banded.
they have to walk on your property. That's trespassing. So.
Well, if they're rubber banded, if the little girl that delivers my paper every week from the News of Delaware County gets it to the front door somehow in a rubber band, the guy that delivers the Inquirer in the morning's got it wrapped in a heavy and gets it onto the lawn. It's not all over the our residents' lawns. This stuff is just trash. That we end up picking up. You probably pick it up on. Everybody's picked it up on their street.
Well, yeah, but
I have,
to be
I
clear,
agree with Larry, though. I
this
think
is
we
really
should pass
important.
it, and then if the solicitor comes back with stronger wording, we need to change it. We already have it.
But just so, and I'm not inviting him to come up, but come up and tell me if I'm wrong, okay, Deputy Chief Hagan. If tonight, Bill, there's 100 leaflets in your streets, in your ward, and the police find the van distributing them tonight, they will cite them, whether we pass this or not, for littering. And because they're going to have the ones that were all over your street, and then they're going to have a van full of them, and they're going to have a guy saying, I don't know whose that is, and they're going to issue the ticket, right? Now, do you need to come up and tell me I'm wrong, Deputy Chief Hagan?
If you're asking him, he
Here
does.
he comes.
One of the things I would say, it would be hard for me to prove that you're the one that actually threw it out the van before we'd be able to cite you.
But he can
We'd
go.
have to go back
yeah.
to the company, we'd have to put that driver in that location before I could issue.
Can't he go to Judge Burke and make his case and with your ticket?
He could, but I would not put somebody in that situation where I would cite them without the problem.
Well, you are probably far more liberal a police officer than maybe some folks are used to. But at that point, you certainly have reasonable suspicion that a violation of this has happened.
To investigate further.
Yeah,
Unless
all
I
right.
take confession from them, it was them that threw it on there. Yes, I'd be very hesitant to issue a citation.
But you wouldn't be hesitant to tell this person to stop throwing these things all over the street on a 30-degree windy night or 30-mile-an-hour windy night, right?
No, I wouldn't have a problem.
And I don't suspect anybody in your force would have a problem with that either. All right. Thanks. And Mr. Siegel, the chief perpetrators of the issue with the shopping carts were shopping cart thieves from the Super Fresh. It wasn't the people that owned the Super Fresh. They weren't good about picking them up.
That was the problem.
But it was the customers that stole them in the first place. And I had to defend those poor people at the Super Fresh. They had enough to worry about up there without having to run all over and get the shopping carts. It was first and foremost shopping cart thieves that were taking them. But I digress.
Yeah, but they have a responsibility. They do have a responsibility.
We're not
to
talking
collect
about
them.
shopping carts anymore.
I mean,
They
that's
have a responsibility
that's
not
blight.
to make Steve D'Amelio angry with them back when this first happened.
No, it's the same way with this. Not to
I'm
make
just
you
playing.
angry with the
Yeah.
littering, right?
Yeah. No.
Cart carousels, as
Yeah.
soon as the ordinance was passed in the rear lot.
It was an excellent example of people changing their behaviors because of an ordinance we passed, and this may work. It'd be great.
I hope
I'm
so.
100% for it.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
News of Delaware County will have to give specific instructions for these signs. Because the law is stated it's not
Conspicuous
just for
sign
the, just for the
placed
ads. They're for
conspicuously on the
newspapers.
lawn.
I subscribe to that.
But
So
newspapers only provided if you subscribe.
But if you have that sign in your lawn, you can't get the News of Delaware County in front of your lawn based on this ordinance.
That is not true. You have invited that when you have a when you
I
have a
subscribe to it.
subscription, when you have subscribed to anything to a hand delivered thing, you have granted them license to come on your property and throw the, and they're not allowed by law to put it in your mailbox, so they must put it elsewhere on your property. So, I mean, laws have to act in conjunction with one another and make sense reading. And
I'm just going to take my crusade to Acme and Giant. I get when I throw the stuff away. There's a pile of those things in the store as you walk in. It comes to an app on my phone. It downloads all the coupons on my card. I don't see the need to throw all this trash on our front lawns, but that's just me. So,
but the market will eventually do that. I mean,
it'll level. I agree.
Or before that happens, there's still a lot of folks who walk in with that flyer, whether they get it from the mail. But I mean, the yellow pages are gone, the white pages are gone. We don't have those anymore, and those used to be huge things that sat in our dining room cupboards, and every year we got a new one, didn't throw out the old one. And those are a thing of the past. So, I mean, it's in our lifetime, heck, in your next term, you may see literally the end of that stuff.
True.
Yeah. But in the meanwhile,
Highly likely.
I think this ordinance isn't a bad idea.
I agree.
question.
Let's
move on.
yeah.
We're waiting for Mr. Gentili to
Now
return.
that we spent a half an hour on that,
You're making an assumption based upon what you think is.
Mr. Levin, thank you very much for your comments, but the rules are that once, and you're more than happy to come up at the end of the session where you can speak. Thank you. Okay. And
Secretary's not here?
still waiting for the secretary.
Well, somebody
we
can
can,
do
we can talk more about
We'll
this.
we'll
right
have
now?
our, yes, if you would please come forward and.
Acting Secretary?
So the motion stands as worded,
Well, actually,
been
did
moved
we
and
want
seconded.
to
Or are you
leave
adding-
in? Do we want to change the changes to Section A right now to indicate that you can still,
these,
persons requesting non-delivery of a newspaper or periodical shall do so in writing or certified mail to facilitate proof of notice under this section, or follow the dictates of Sections B and C below?
I would take that language and put it at the end of paragraphs B and C. Alternatively, persons requesting non-delivery of hand-built periodical newspaper shall do so in writing by certified mail to facilitate proof of notice under this section.
the last sentence in paragraph A will be put into paragraph B and into paragraph C.
Correct, but I would say alternative.
Alternative,
Say
yeah.
alternatively before that sentence, because obviously you're not going to do, you could do both, but it gives you the alternative to establish what you've done.
Mr.
So I would
Byrne?
make that a mo-
I'll second that amendment.
Okay. And agreed upon by Mr. Lewis. Any further discussion? There being none, as amended.
Work sessions are for.
Mr. Secretary, if you would please take the roll.
Certainly. Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
No.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
No.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
And Mr. Connell?
Yes, the motion carries as amended.
And Jim will come back to us, I guess, next month. or-
Next work session, I guess,
Next
right?
work-
That'd be fine.
And I'm going to note that down here. Okay. Item number 11 on the agenda is ordinance P3.
Commissioner
Commissioner McGarry. Mr. Secretary, if you please note that Mr. McGarry is now in session. Item number 11 on the ordinance P3 2017 deals with the police department. Mr. D'Amelio as the Commissioner of Police.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the first reading of ordinance number P3 2017, further amending and supplementing Chapter 67, contractors licensing by adding provisions for restoration services providers.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wexler. Discussion?
We talked about this in the
Work
session. The chief had talked about this extensively about his experience in dealing with individuals that approach our residents after they've had a severe fire and at the lowest points in their lives, trying to get them to sign contracts. And so this is to stop that from happening.
Anything further? Mr. Secretary, there being none, would you please take the roll?
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 12, ordinance P4 2017. Mr. D'Amelio, do you want to carry through on that?
Yes, motion to adopt the first reading of ordinance number P4 2017, amending and supplementing ordinance number 1960, adopted June 30th, 1986, and known as the general laws of the Township of Haverford, is further amended by adding provisions for restoration services providers.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Oliva. Discussion?
It's just the corresponding changes in the code book associated with this, right? It goes with the last ordinance.
Yes.
And as discussed at the work session, then there being none, Mr. Secretary, please take the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
And Mr. Connell?
Yes, motion carries. Number 13, this is a resolution 2040.
Mr. President, make a motion to adopt resolution number 2040-2017, Section 5 of the Act of January 24th, 1966, PL 1535, number 537, known as the Pennsylvania Sewage Facilities Act, as amended, and the rules and regulations of the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection adopted thereunder. Chapter 71 of Title 25 of the Pennsylvania Code required the municipality to adopt an official sewage facilities plan providing for sewage services adequate to prevent contamination of waters of the Commonwealth and/or environmental health hazards from sewage waste, and to revise said plan whenever it is necessary to determine whether a proposed method of sewage disposal for a new land development conforms to a comprehensive program of pollution control and water quality management.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Oliva.
This is to accommodate a development, a subdevelopment at 1235 Steel Road, adding the EDUs and sewage capacity for such development.
Thank you, Mr. Wexler. Any further? There being none, please take the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio? Oh, he walked out, I'm sorry.
I can hear him.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
We can get back to him at the end.
Mr. Siegel? Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
D'Amelio, do you want to?
Motion carries. Item number 14 is the purchase of Public Works Sanitation Department equipment. Mr. McGarity, you are the Public Works.
Okay.
Item number 14.
14, okay. Motion to authorize the purchase of one Leach 20-yard APRA 3 rear loading refuge body with dumpster, lift bar, and Grand Tuck Equipment Company, Bridgeport, PA 19405, under CoStar's contract 025046 in the amount of $74,223.50.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wexler. Any discussion? Take the roll, please.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
The motion carries. Also under number 14 is there's additional motion.
Motion to authorize the purchase of one 2018 International 7400 4x2 cabin chassis from Hunter Trucks S&S, Logan Township, New Jersey, under CoStar's contract 25-102 in the amount of $96,233.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Oliva. Discussion? There being none, take the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel? Yes. Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
And Mr. Connell?
Yes, motion carries. And then the police department under the same purchase.
Motion to authorize the township manager to purchase two solar-powered pay-by-space Strata BNA coin, bill, and credit card meter with a color display for the Oakmont and Brookline lots from Diva and Associates, Voorhees, New Jersey, in the amount of $24,952, and that's for two parking meter COSAs.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. D'Amelio. Any discussion?
Just a quick question, Larry. What do we do with the old ones? We just they have any value or just
Started, no, we don't have
just
any
throw?
value.
No value? They're that bad?
They're actually barely operational.
Really? Do we have any recourse against the vendor, or is it?
They're so old.
Are they? It's been that long?
Yeah.
Oh.
They'll be on eBay.
Come on, it's got to be 10 years old, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
they spend more time
Did
fixing
it ever
them
work
than-
well, or do they never really?
You know what? When they were there when I first came on board, so I mean I can tell you during my 9 years here they've been problematic for the police department.
Yeah.
And the biggest complaint, as I know at the Oakmont lot, that we have a lot of complaints from the seniors. They were difficult to operate.
Yeah.
So we're very comfortable that the
Numbers are large
The police department did a lot of research. And they met with their colleagues from Radnor as well as Lower Merion Township, and we're very confident that this is going to be a product that will work, will be user-friendly, and will last for many years.
Reliable.
The good
Good.
thing about this product, even more so, is that we had this money budgeted in the capital budget, but we were able to fund grant money, so we'll save approximately $22,000 in the budget.
Always like that news. Thank you.
Anything further? There being none, please take the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
And Mr. Connell?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 15 is an agreement. Mr. McCluskey, would you?
Motion to authorize the township manager to execute and amend the Constellation Electricity Supply Agreement dated February 12th, 2016, whereby customer's contractor will sell and install, and customer will purchase and receive at customer's facility conservation measures and related energy efficiency equipment.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Oliva. A discussion? Mrs. Woodhull, did you want to? Any questions? Nope. Okay. There being none, please take the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
And Mr. Connell?
Yes, the motion carries. Item number 16 is a contract award for the is it Township Property Committee. would come under there, Mr. Oliva or Mr. McGarity?
I can do that.
Okay, Mr. Oliva?
Motion to award the vehicle fuel services to be located at the new Municipal Services Building to Ferguson and McCann Incorporated, Aston, PA, in the amount of $171,007.00, submitting the lowest responsible bid.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McGarity. Discussion?
Was this in addition to the building budget, or is this an additional item?
No, it's actually was budgeted, but we actually contracted it out. We didn't give it to the,
So it's in the total that we've already approved for the building, is what you're saying? So it's already been appropriated.
Anything further?
Yeah,
Mr.
according
Siegel?
to the letter from Mr. Pinoni, we have to waive the bidder's failure to include bid security.
Failure? What? The bidder's supposed to provide bid security with the bid. The low bidder did not. Subsequently provided it a couple hours later. And after consulting with Jim in his office, the board has the ability, I think it's fair to say, we don't have any problem if you do, to waive that as irregularity.
So we're just being asked to approve a late submission on the surety
The
bond.
bid bond. The bid bond came in.
Okay, all right.
But it came in after the receipt of bids.
Well, I'm sorry I was late tonight, but I didn't know anything about this, so I'll therefore remove my second from that motion.
Dave, could
Okay.
you explain to the board the second bid, what the difference between the first bid and the second bid?
Hold on a second.
I think what we have to do, if he's
Gotta get a
removing the
second.
second, then I need a,
I'll second it.
Mr. Siegel, thank you.
Let me ask Mr. Siegel, did I answer your question? First off, let me back up. Everybody know what a bid bond is? The bid bond is security that the procurement rules require that when a public bid comes in, with that comes a bid security in the amount of 15% of the bid itself.
I'm watching.
That bid security is there in case we award the contract to the low bidder, and the low bidder says no. That bid bond is then bid security to re-advertise and reissue contracts. Not the difference between a low bidder and high bidder, by the way, the reissue. The number one bidder here is a bidder we've worked with in the past. Their number is approximately $170,000. The number two bidder, we don't have as much experience with. Their bid's $230,000.
And my question was more, do we have to include in the motion that we're waiving that? That was my concern.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
That was my simple concern. Did we have to include that in the motion just to be compliant? And that would be a question, I guess, for Mr. Byrne.
Or is it enough to be aware of it?
But I think it has been provided, right? I mean, we have the
It has
bid bond
been
now,
provided.
so.
The letter from Mr. Pinoni talks about the commissioners can waive it, which
Okay.
presumably is by commissioner action.
Right.
We've never had this
Yeah, I
occur
mean,
since I've been on the board.
I
That's
guess
why.
that, I mean, safest to include that language, but also to make clear to everybody that the bid bond has been submitted. It's not that we're just waiving it and saying you never have to provide it. It's been provided, right?
Correct.
And that's really what we're waiving, is just the requirement that it was provided initially.
Subsequent to the receipt of bids.
Right.
Correct.
Whoever made the motion would have to just amend it to include that, and then,
Mario?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
and I'll
you'll
I'll
accept-
continue to second.
And
it.
you'll accept that?
I don't
Yep.
have any problem. I just wanted to make sure we were technically correct.
Is there anything further on the discussion? With the amendment made, please take the roll.
Certainly. Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
No.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
And Mr. Connell?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 17, appointments. First one we have is for the Civil Service Commission, an alternate. It's a 6-year term.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. D'Amelio.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Christopher Lorario to serve on the Civil Service Commission for a 6-year term to expire December 31st, 2022.
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Oliva. Any additional?
Mr. President,
Mr. Siegel?
motion to appoint Bill Goldsmith to serve on the Civil Service Commission for a 6-year term to expire December 31st, 2022.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McCluskey, and that's for Mr. Goldsmith.
Steve, I'm familiar with Mr. Goldsmith because he interviewed for the library. Can you detail any of Chris's personnel experience and HR evaluation type stuff for us?
Yeah, his work history is he works for Core Management Services. He's been executive as senior consultant there for a number of years. He worked for Doubletree Hilton for 2 years. He was director there. And he has extensive experience in environmental and hospital management. He has a degree from Bloomsburg State University. He has a business administration management degree.
I know he's been in hospital maintenance for most of his career, but what specifically personnel and civil service type? Anything that relates to the Civil Service Commission is what I'm looking, see if he has any of that experience. Mr. Goldsmith, I know from interviewing in the library, was a managing director in Philadelphia, which had extensive civil service, so I just trying to get a balance to see where we are.
Well, I mean, what are you trying to say, Bill? I'm sorry.
I'm just asking, I didn't see a resume in the last month for this position detailing his civil service or personnel evaluation experience at all. His old resume just has him as hospital maintenance, the one that's on file from like 9 years ago for when he was on the alternate.
Well, the only newest thing he added was his recent work history, but he's hired individuals in the past. I mean, civil service as far as hiring police officers, no. But he's an educated man. He's been in business for years, an executive.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Go ahead, Mr. Holmes.
I forget, why are we doing this in February and it didn't happen in January? Did we table the Civil
We didn't
Service
have
Commission?
anybody, you didn't have a
There are no
candidate.
names.
There were no names, okay.
We tabled it.
It was tabled because
We
it-
tabled
Yeah, we
it
tabled
because at the time, Mr. Lorario had not submitted his resignation from
the
his
other
other
position.
The vacancy committee.
From the vacancy committee, and therefore could not be considered for the Civil Service Commission. I had at that time placed Mr. Goldsmith's name at the nomination, so it was tabled for this month. My understanding is that he has now, Mr. Lorario has now submitted his resignation, so he is eligible for the appointment.
When's the last time the board, we interviewed Mr. Lario? Back for his first thing on the vacancy committee? I mean, we don't interview incumbents, right?
No,
For
we do not.
their current positions, but do we interview incumbents when they go for a different position?
we haven't, no.
We have not.
Just trying to think of instances where we have. Well, I mean, are we facing a crisis right now on the Civil Service Commission that does it?
It's an alternate position. I don't think an alternate has ever had to step forward, never been called to step forward to serve.
Well, why don't we? Did I miss it in the packet? Did we have Mr. Lorario's resume to examine?
Not that I know of.
We had Phil's.
His resume's been on file, but and we've seen it before.
Yeah, no, I hip to that. I mean, why don't we just? Why don't we reconsider this for March and either have a conversation at our next work session, interview Mr. Lorario for the position. He's going for a position obviously different from the position he held before, and we interviewed Mr. Goldsmith in December, everybody from the board who was here, and we haven't interviewed Mr. Lorario. It's got to be 5 years, Steve, since any of us had a question for him, so,
I'm just looking for those.
right? I mean, he's been on the vacancy committee 5-6 years.
There is no urgency, does it matter?
No, there's not. There's nothing.
So how about he come to see us the night of our work session?
You all right with that?
10-minute interview with the guy, and then we'll decide at the next meeting.
We've interviewed other individuals for other boards in the past, and if we've put them on other boards in the past.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know when. Tell me an example.
No, wait.
I'll give you an example.
Let me just say this.
On the planning commission, what's his name, Bill?
Rhodes.
Bill Rhodes was on the planning commission.
He went to the zoning board.
He went to the zoning board. We never interviewed him for the zoning board position. We just took his resume from the.
Right, we had his
planning-
resume. I
Right.
just haven't seen Chris's updated resume.
Well, it's on
in
file,
9
so you can go see it anytime you want.
Here's it on file from
At the-
updated from 9 years ago. That's what I'm,
He just told you what
It was
his
at the
changes to
township
the.
line, isn't it?
what can we get? I just get a, I just don't know I'm voting on something I don't know if the individual.
Well, it's not rocket science, Bill. I mean, it's just, I don't get it.
I know. Well,
I'm not looking at cells. He's not splitting cells.
I agree. I just interviewed Mr. Goldschmidt. I know he's qualified. I just don't know.
You've interviewed Chris Laverio, and you know Chris Laverio. You've met him in the past.
Can I just say this, though, in all fairness?
He's here right now.
Larry brought a fella in 2 months ago and asked us to please interview him. He didn't have a resume. He was a lawyer that's a friend of Larry's, and we agreed to it, even though we shouldn't have agreed to it if you want to go by what we're saying here tonight. So what's the difference between that and Chris Laverio?
That's true.
I'm confused.
I mean, we did it that night. Why can't we do it tonight?
You mean interview him?
What?
You
No.
mean interview Chris and see his resume?
No,
He's
asking
been
to make
interviewed before.
An exception in this to allow the vote to go through instead of holding it off to a March.
All right. I mean, I mean, if you want to have the vote, I mean, I just don't. If it's an alternate position, and let's you know, there are obviously the Civil Service Commission has a very specific role, like zoning has, in that they have their own powers to set the list. We can't mess with that. You know what I mean? We're not. They don't advise us. Civil Service Commission is a whole different story. They're like zoning. That is one we should take very seriously. We want to check. Did we consider any of the other people who applied for other positions that we didn't take? Did we put it out to the world that we didn't have we had an opening in civil service? And
Yeah. We went out with the-
and these are the only resumes the only takers were Mr. Goldsmith and Mr. Goldschmidt. I'm sorry, I got to get his name right.
Well, I'm
Goldsmith, right? And Mr. Larerio.
nobody put on their resume that they wanted civil service.
Service Commission. Okay. I look. I think it's an alternate spot. I think it's important enough. They're all important. Every position everybody fills here and volunteers to help us with is an important position. But the Civil Service Commission has rules dictated by the state, not by us. It has to do with hiring our police officers. I don't see what the harm is of seeing an updated resume and having an interview.
I agree with you on what you're saying, and I don't have a problem waiting another month and getting a thing. The problem is that the rules need to be the same for everybody. Okay,
But I don't know what interviewing Mr. Desiderato had to do with.
I listened to your speak, and please allow me to have the floor for a moment. And that is, the rules need to be the same for every candidate. Now, if we're allowing candidates and for civil service and the zoning hearing board, Bill Rhodes, we did the same thing with. We put Bill Rhodes on without interviewing Bill Rhodes. We just put Bill Rhodes in because we knew Bill Rhodes. We knew we had his resume. This is the same thing. We know Chris Laverio. We have his resume on file. So if you want to change the rules, well, then we have to change them for everybody. It can't be just one. This is what frustrates me. We follow the rules until we don't. That's the frustration that I have with this issue. I have no problem waiting. If you feel that it's this important, I am with you. I will vote with you. But let's keep the rules the same for everything. This is really bugs me.
Well, I guess I'm not for or against anybody. My question was simply, I haven't seen Chris's resume.
And why didn't you ask for it, Bill? You knew this was coming up, and you knew his name was submitted.
I thought it was
going to
gonna-
easily have called the township.
I got the packet yesterday. I assumed it would be in the packet.
Why didn't you call yesterday?
Because
you could have called Larry at any time and asked for that resume.
Okay. The other thing too is, I mean, he's from my ward. I have never heard from him asking him if he wanted the position anyway. We reappointed him to the vacancy committee based on his previous resume. This is for a different skill set. The way I think it, as somebody just pointed out, it's a very important.
And so is the vacancy committee.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, may I call?
reached out.
Can I call for a vote, Mr. Chairman?
There's a call for the vote.
Well,
I would move
I'm moving to table before
Okay,
we
so
vote.
there can be no more discussion. If he motioned to table, we have to call the
Motion.
vote for the table.
I second the motion to table.
By Mr. Lewis.
For 1 month, I think doesn't matter.
Okay.
And I'm not going to take a hearsay. I'm going
I
to
do
take a
agree with
roll.
you. I just think
on
that, we got to follow the rules for everything.
Well, I want to talk about that.
Okay, motion to table. Please take the roll. This for
Emilio?
No.
McCluskey? Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
No.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
No. But the motion carries. It is tabled. And it will be, well, it's tabled till further, and this will be at the
Oh, next
March.
month, next
This will
month.
be at the March meeting.
Yeah, so
Get
if,
resumes and
if we could get the updated resume, and then the board can decide as a board whether or not we want to conduct an interview with Mr. Larry or just go on his resume. But if we could get a revised resume, that'd be great, or an updated
Until
resume.
at this time, they're asking for an updated resume.
Chris, can you
yeah,
get
I'll
us an
send you what
updated
we have on
resume?
file.
Okay. Chris is in the audience. He has agreed to supply
Right,
a
that's
resume.
fine. That's
All right,
just
but
fair
we
to the other
don't
guy.
communicate with people in the audience while we're doing this. We
Well, I
talk
mean,
to
I think
them.
this is an
Gentlemen, at this
exception
point,
to the
at
rule.
this time, we do have, it has been tabled, and the request is for an addition on the resume, and that will be discussed at the March work session. Carrying on, item number, let's see, we have the Environmental Committee, Advisory Committee, 2-year terms. We have, Mr. McCluskey, you do have someone for the third.
Yeah, in the third ward, as I mentioned at the work session last week, Katie Thompson will be, I'll appoint her to the Environmental Advisory Committee for a 2-year term.
And then the sixth ward, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. President, I have a person that I need to confirm with. I conferred with our solicitor, and since this is a ward appointment, he tells me that it's enough if I just send my pick to you and copy Mr. Gentili, and
That's all?
that is effective. And then I'll announce that at the next meeting at the work session who it was.
Good enough, okay. Next on the agenda is the Ice Rink Advisory Board for a 3-year term. Are there any nominations to this position?
Who did we, who stepped down? This is,
Oh, I'd have to,
Yeah.
the fifth ward.
I'd have to ask,
Thinking,
does anybody remember?
yeah, Donna, I don't remember the
People
name of
stepped
it.
down. 2 people stepped down because there was 4 openings, and we've filled 3 of the 4 openings.
Okay, are we still, we're still looking for a
We're
fourth
still
person to
looking,
appoint?
yes.
Do we have up on our website that we're looking for somebody for the Scadium board?
There is nothing on the website.
I don't think it's up
that
there
refers
any
to it
longer
now.
right now.
Could we put it up there so we can get somebody for the March meeting to be considered? I have no nomination, I'm sorry, so maybe somebody.
we should shoot out emails maybe as well into
Yeah.
our list, our
Okay,
email list.
then
Well-
I'll make a motion to table this.
Yeah. Second.
Okay, motion to table, seconded by Mr. Lewis. At this time, I'll just say, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
And the ayes have it. And Mr. Secretary will put something out on the media and our Facebook
I think our emails as well, our email list.
as well. And that would be from each individual commissioner. Senior Citizens Advisory Council, the 1-year appointments. We have an open, Mr. D'Amelio.
Tabling mine.
Okay, Mr. McCluskey.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Hold on one second, guys, I apologize. That was for the senior citizens,
Yes, Senior Citizens Advisory Council.
and Steve said, I'm sorry.
He's going to table.
Table, okay.
Ward number 3.
And just as I said at the work session last week, Margaret Curlin will be the Senior Citizen Advisory Council for 1 year from Ward 3. But just to reiterate it at
Now
the
make it
voting.
official.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Can you spell her last name, sir?
Kirlin.
Thank you.
And I did send it to Gloria and all her information, Larry.
Thank you.
Garrity?
Yeah, Rosemary Downs, 203 Sagamore Road.
Okay. And the last item here, we have the Vacancy Committee 1-year term. Are there candidates for that?
I don't know of any.
And therefore, if someone will
Motion to table?
make the motion to table.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. D'Amelio, was it?
Yes.
And if we could please put that out. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. If we could please put that out, also out?
Yep.
The same process through media and individual.
Better explain what that is, though, because people won't understand what that position is, Larry. So,
Yeah, it's an easy one. I could just take that right off the code.
okay,
Yep. That's how I sent it out, is under the code.
yeah.
All right, gentlemen, moving forward. Item number 18 is the continuation of citizens forum for non-agenda items. On this side of the room, Mr. Levin.
First, on the Health and Welfare Committee and the Haverford.
Mr. Levin, I'm sorry, just for protocol, your address, please.
Mill Road in Havertown. Thank you. On the health and welfare issue, connected also with the Haverford Alliance on Drug Awareness, I still do not hear any talk of an agenda for that committee. Similarly, I don't hear an agenda for any other committee. And I think that the President Commissioner has an obligation to enforce that. The officer's report for accidents does not make clear whether citizens who investigate their own accidents have a right to the information from the other driver. Police officers do, but I'm not clear on the fact, at least in this township, of whether an individual has the right to ask another driver for his driver's license and insurance. Third, on the concrete issue, I never suggested that a favoritism list be produced. I am simply asking for an alphabetical list of contractors and their phone numbers and addresses so that we can make a determination as to whether one pricing is better than the next. I'll skip over Mr. Gentili's statement. Twitter is being used by this president because he's still in a campaign mode. He finds it familiar. 146 characters is not too much to write even for him, but I'll leave that where that is right now. I have an anxiety over this president as well, a very great anxiety. Now, finally, after making statements, Mr. Gentili and the rest of the commissioners agreed upon that the commissioners have done a wonderful job and will continue to do so for the library. I hear a resolution being brought to the floor which says we're now going to deprive the residents of this township of outside information concerning their suppliers, some of whom may run bricks and mortar stores that may no longer be in business. So our base for the very essentials of life become diminished. Second, not everything within those packets flies out on the street. There is no organization of the facts concerning whether this occurs rarely, whether it occurs all the time, whether it occurs in everyone. Now, we have learned the issue regarding awareness of the facts this past week in another connection. Finally, it's costing us money because we do not know where the suppliers are who have products that might improve the quality of our own lives. So I think that this resolution, while it meets your obligation of preparing such a statement, misses the point that the factual basis is that a rubber band around the top of one of these flyer envelopes will essentially stop papers from flying around. I think it is also important to notice that the phone number of the person who supplies these packets is on every packet, okay? And a call to him will yield a response that evening. I can tell you that because I did it myself. I want those on my doorstep. It's information about, not only about the township, but once a month, the news of Delaware County in a magazine form comes in with striking information about suppliers I never heard of, but I would like to. I think that this was a boneheaded way of handling a situation that may be objectionable to a few commissioners, one or a few commissioners. Thank you.
Last row on this side.
You too.
This side of the room, first row. Second row, third row, and the fourth row. Thank you very much for coming up once again and expressing yourself. Committee will have an agenda when we put one out. It is a brand-new committee, and right now it is to research the growing epidemic of opioid use in the Haverford Township, and also to help support HADA when they came here last year and asked us for their support. When that committee gets together, they will put together a continual agenda that the rest of us on the board will read publicly. As far as your other issues have been taken them into consideration. Thank you very much for coming forward.
Mr. President?
I can understand that you're very passionate about them right now. Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
President,
Holmes.
I just, to the extent any clarification is necessary, Title 75 of the Pennsylvania statutes governs the motor vehicle, operation of motor vehicles, financial responsibility, everything of the sort. Section 3744 specifically deals with the duties to give information and render aid. The driver of any vehicle involved in an accident resulting in injury to or death of any person or damage to any vehicle or other property which is driven or attended by any person shall give his name, address, and the registration number of the vehicle he is driving, and shall, upon request, exhibit his driver's license and information relating to financial responsibility to any person injured in the accident, or to the driver or occupant of, or person attending any vehicle or other property damaged in the accident. It's quite clear that anybody involved in any accident involving damage to another automobile, or damage to a fence, or damage to a house, or damage to a bike, or damage to anything, has an affirmative duty under the law to provide their information to the person. Does not mean you shouldn't dial up the cops if you feel it necessary for it to be investigated, but any person who refuses to provide that information to another person involved in an accident upon their request to do so has committed a crime in Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
My pleasure.
Moving forward,
Right? That's correct. Thanks.
we have item number 19 is new business.
President?
Mr. Siegel.
Yes. One of the issues that's come up recently is the passage by the legislature in Harrisburg of the medical marijuana law. And what I would ask this board to do is to, consistent with section 609.2 of the MPC, refer this to our solicitor to address any issues that have arisen, and have him look at our code to make sure that we're either in compliance or what we need to do to be in compliance with that. I hope I phrased that properly.
Yeah, I think you did, and I think what I have to do is take a look at it, get back to you within 30 days. Is what we need to do under 609.2.
I would make that a resolution that we refer this to Mr. Byrne.
Okay.
Do I have to make a resolution?
I was going to say,
We would do that. We would do that within 30 days. What happens is the board takes the initiative to direct us to look at the code to see if, in this instance, we have an act of the legislature that made something that was not legal before legal now, and whether that has to be included within our zoning code. So then, what the MPC provides at 6092 is a curative amendment process to allow us to, when there is a change like that, to amend our ordinances first to look at it for 30 days, and then we have 180 days after that if we find it's defective we have 30 days to do a resolution and then 180 more days to fix what we think might be the problem. In this case, inserting provisions that address the marijuana issue.
And we could talk at the work session.
Absolutely, yep.
Within that time, okay.
Right.
Mr. Siegel? All right, thank you very much. Anything else under new business? There being none, item number 20 on the agenda is other business. Mr. D'Amelio?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to, for the record, state that I believe that we received our packet through the email on Friday about 10 o'clock. Would that be accurate, Mr. Gentili? Gloria sent that out around Friday?
Yes.
Okay. Also, my first ward meeting is Wednesday, March 15th, at the Manoa Firehouse at 7 p.m. Police will be there, as well as Mr. Gentili and Codes, and it's a very popular meeting. I look forward to seeing everyone there. I want to thank this board for allowing me to make my comments earlier, and again, I think that immigration is a real concern, and it seems to be fueling a lot of anger, among other things. And again, I believe that President Trump should refrain from tweeting about Arnold Schwarzenegger and his ratings and care more about what's happening in North Korea and Iran. It seems to me that Iran is getting bolder by the minute, firing off weapons as the way North Korea is. It's a real concern. I think the deal that President Obama made was flawed with Iran, and that's why you're seeing them conducting these ballistic missile tests, including North Korea. And I got a couple. Just give me a couple of minutes to talk about this immigration. The Clinton administration sent a legislative proposal to Congress in 1995 to strengthen the country's strategy for combating illegal immigration. And this proposed legislation provides for no fewer than 700 new Border Patrol agents, an employment verification pilot program to determine the most effective means of removing a significant incentive to illegal immigration, employment in the United States, increased penalties for alien smuggling, illegal reentry, failure to deport, employer violations, and immigration document fraud, streamlined deportation procedures so that criminal aliens can be removed from the United States. So the point is this is nothing new. And again, I want to bring up the Haverford Drug Alliance, because if you have, I don't see the problem with when an illegal immigrant commits a felony, that illegal immigrant be deported. We have a real problem with heroin in this country, and again, it is destroying the very fabric of this nation. And unless we do something about it, we're rotting from inside. This is why the Haverford Drug Alliance, which is a great, unbelievable organization, was formed. This group came to my meeting to talk about the drug epidemic, which is very bad. But there are other crimes that occur. We have to worry about terrorism, but we have to worry about terrorism here in the United States, where U.S. citizens, residents of the United States, perform terrorism. Who could forget in the middle of our country when Timothy McVeigh committed an act of terrorism right in the heartland of this country? It's not an easy fix. People are very passionate. They're very concerned. I get that. I am equally concerned, and I just want to reiterate that no one speaks for me. I don't think anyone speaks for this board. I know this board that if we felt that something was happening that we did not like, we would definitely reach out. He may not listen, but we would reach out to the President of the United States with a letter from all of us stating our concerns, especially if it's violating U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That's something we would do. But I think a lot of immigrants add a lot of value to this country. It's been that way for years, and hopefully it continues. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. McCluskey?
I must admit that I'm surprised. I was not prepared to be dating debating at this board meeting Donald Trump's executive orders. But with that being said, just let me briefly, because I do want to mention that HADA, along with the Rotary Club, on February 28th at 7:30 p.m. is showing a movie, and there'll be a panel discussion after it called Chasing the Dragon. It's produced by the DEA. All are welcome to attend. Again, that's February 28th at 7:30 at the Haverford High School Auditorium, and we'll have a panel discussion. Just briefly, I do not believe that this board's role is to necessarily go back and forth on all of President Trump's policies. That being said, I do give Commissioner D'Amelio credit for standing up and publicly stating what his beliefs are, and think that there probably are some federal public officials who could share some of that same courage. I think there is anxiety in this country that is very real and should be taken seriously, and in many cases is extremely justified. I do, again, without debating the merits of many of the actions, I do think we run the risk of creating a false equivalency between the immigration policies of President George W. Bush, President Herbert Walker Bush, President Clinton, and President Obama, and what has taken place recently, which a federal judge and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has deemed unconstitutional. And I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do want to stress that the Commissioner D'Amelio's expression wasn't necessarily to open up a debate. It is that he wished to speak for himself, as we have had other commissioners do so at this board. So it wasn't designed
And I'm not looking to debate.
Right. So it was just his expression as a citizen and as a resident of the township. And Mr. Siegel.
Thank you. I'll do what I always do, which is leave my discussions of politics to the kitchen table for now. I do want to just point out that we will be scheduling, I anticipate having another joint constituent meeting with Commissioner McCluskey probably in April, but we're firming up the date. And I do just want to point out something that with regard to the handbill ordinance, which we discussed at our work session, et cetera, that does not preclude anyone from receiving them. It just gives people a method of not receiving them. So at the risk of quoting Ronald Reagan, Dr. Levin, there you go again. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, two things. One, to follow up on what Mario had said about how we make various appointments to the boards and commissions. And I think we do, as a board, need to talk through how we do that in advance and make sure it is consistently applied. I, for one, think that every member that's up for reappointment to a board should be interviewed. In the past, they automatically have been given a pass and they get reappointed. I think that anybody that serves on a board or commission should be interviewed. I know it makes more work for this board, but I think it's important that we go through that process. So I, for one, would be supportive of that. And I think we have to have rules amongst ourselves about deadlines as to when people have to get their resumes in. And if there's somebody doesn't in a particular position, we don't have a resume for it, obviously that deadline would be extended. But I think we as a board should come up with some pretty strict guidelines or rules that we're all going to apply when it comes to the various boards and commissions that we appoint.
May I interrupt?
Yeah.
I apologize, but I had volunteered to draft a proposal, I believe, last year, and I didn't do so. I'll be happy to take that under and have something by, I would say, the May meeting, and then we can have it as a discussion item for our work session.
That would be great.
That's fine. Yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
it's like
That is something that I overlooked, and I will.
Because we've been having this problem for a very long time.
Yeah, I think we should.
As long as I've
address
been
it.
on the board, we've been having this.
Mr. Lewis,
We had
you
it
wanna
before
finish?
too. The second point I'd make is I just recently went to one of my first library board meetings, and Bill Wexler and I are serve as liaison to the library, and I want to just comment on some of the things that former Commissioner Hall had said and mentioned. I think this board is committed to seeing a state-of-the-art library built. That's been unwavering support for that notion. I think we're very much in favor of strong oversight of the library, strong governance of the library. I think we want to wish Christine Ferris well. She did a fabulous job during her tenure, and now we have to turn our attention to finding the best possible replacement that we can, that can not only operate the library but help us in the transition, as Commissioner Holmes said, to probably one of the most important times in the library's history in rebuilding and refurbishing the library. So this board is fully committed to making sure that we get a good end result, and I believe we will. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Holmes.
President Connell, thank you. I just have to state my own surprise at the world being completely upside down. I have Commissioner D'Amelio taking a liberal position up here at the mic. I have Dan Siegel quoting Ronald Reagan, and I myself was trying to talk the police department into arresting more people. I don't know what everybody drank tonight, but we should certainly bottle it. It just might make for more interesting meetings. I could spend the next 45 minutes talking about.
Spare us.
There's just one thing that everybody should consider about the Trump presidency, and that is this. At our last regularly scheduled commissioners' meeting, he wasn't yet inaugurated as president. It is only 24 days old, and we already have this. So God help the Republic. Everybody continue to do what they do. Support the president. Fight the president. Everything we do is with the goal of trying to preserve our republic, and so God bless everybody who takes a position. The only villains in this entire thing are the folks that are sitting on their hands because they don't have the courage to speak up for what they think is right, and for those folks, worse, who are doing what they know is wrong because it's politically expedient. So congrats to Steve for taking the position he did. Congrats to all of my colleagues for continuing to serve, because as I said to Madam Secretary Clinton when we all met her in October when she came here, our business here, the business of local government, has so little to do with what happens at the federal level. And our people worry about we met in the rec center, which was built with local money. We pay our police departments. All of you pay the school districts for 95% of the money they need to operate gets paid by your state taxes and gets paid by your local taxes. So while all that craziness is going on down in Washington, and I have a lot of opinions on that, it's very important for the 9 of us to remember that 95% of your lives is directly affected by what we do. And we continue to take this job, and I continue to take this job, as do my colleagues, very seriously. I agree with coming up with some procedures for us to make our appointment process better. I think the overriding issue that we should be thinking about, and the theme that should be part of those guidelines, is that we do our best to make sure that everybody who wants to serve gets a chance to tell us what they're all about and what skill set they can bring to the township. We've had a very interesting situation this year where we had an extraordinary crop of candidates, too many extraordinary candidates for certain spots, and yet here we are in February with unfilled spots in other boards. We need to get to the bottom of that. We need to reach out more to people who want to be more involved. Almost every one of us on this board did something for the township in one of these committees before we went for and ended up being elected commissioners. So what we can do to encourage our fellow Havertonians and Haverford Township residents to volunteer to serve on these committees, and the more open we can make the process, the better. And I'll interview anybody, anytime for these spots. I keep threatening to, and will have a meeting of the 6th Ward at Chestnut Walled School. I doubt between now and March, so at the March meeting, I'll announce the date for it. We'll have it at the Chestnut Wells School. And the Queen of Heaven and Earth, Annie Holmes, turned 16 this week, and so happy birthday, Annie, from a very proud dad. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. McGarity.
Yes, first, let me say, Fran and I, Gary, express our condolences in the loss of your mother. I'm sure something was mentioned earlier, but I wasn't here, so. Second of all, I want to say I apologize for being late. I was in Disney World with my granddaughter and my wife, and they had the cheerleading down there. And I want you to know that Haverford Senior High, with their varsity and junior varsity teams, took 7th in the nation. They came in 7th. They did very well. And they're coming back at 11 o'clock tonight. I got to pick my granddaughter up. They're coming back at 11 o'clock tonight. I just want to say that is really an experience to watch and see because of the fact I think I walked 25 miles in 2 days. I mean, my wife really was pushing me hard and saying, get out there and do this. But just all the time, effort, not only put in by the cheerleaders and the kids and all that, but put in by the coaches. You don't realize how much time, effort, and money it cost to do that. And it was truly amazing. And I got my granddaughter's going to be going to Haverford next year. She'll be in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So I guess I got 4 more years at Disney World. So I just want to say it was a real treat and a real honor, and I'm so proud of Haverford as varsity and junior varsity with the hard work that they did, along with all the other girls. It's a shame to see the ones that don't win that are walking away crying, but, you know, there's winners and losers, and that's the name of the game. The other thing is I just want to announce that probably I'm hoping Annunciation's basketball team will be coming before us because they're having a fabulous year. They're really doing a great job on all their opponents. So, but that's down the road. And with that, I really don't have anything else to say. I didn't have anything prepared. I just got on the plane, came back, and everybody said, get to the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Wexler?
Yeah, I just have 2 quick things. One is to just congratulate Christine Farris on her retirement. I think just a few of the things that stand out since she's been the librarian is the cohesiveness of the staff that she's recruited, trained, and some of the programs that stand out. The youth programs, especially during the summer for the little children, the number of senior citizens that go there every day, not only for reading clubs, but bridge clubs and all the other programs that they put together for our citizens, especially the seniors and the very young. And then her coordination has been extraordinary with the Delaware County Library System, as well as our neighboring libraries in Lower Merion, to provide services to our residents. So I really congratulate her on her retirement, and she's done a phenomenal job. The staff, the loyalty there is beyond reproach, and the training has been great. The second thing is I'd like to thank the Haverford Alliance for Drug Awareness. They did a presentation at my meeting on January 26th at the Bon Air Fire Company for the Hilltop Civic Association on the awareness. So we are involved with their Dr. Levin with them in getting the word out and the awareness to all wards within the township. I also want to thank State Representative Santoro for his input and insight that evening as well. He also attended. So, even though there's not a formal agenda in writing that you're looking for, I think all the commissioners have taken the initiative and we're getting the word out to all our citizens. The key word in their group's name is awareness, and that's what we're striving for, is to make people aware of the issues and some of the places to turn for help. So, thank you, sir. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Leva?
Yeah, just a couple things. I want to invite everyone to come out to the Trail Summit. It will be on Saturday, February 25th from 9 to 12 at the Crack. It is a regional network, and Haverford Township is the leader in this in trails in Delaware County. And I believe the mayor of Upper Darby will be coming Mayor McCosey will be joining us, so we can work together with them. Of course, we have how many miles of trails in this township now?
About 9 miles of trails, but
9 miles of trails throughout the township. I also wanted to express.
And blazing more.
And blazing more trails, that's right. I wanted to thank Christine Ferris for her service. Christine, not only was she our librarian, but she was able to put together, through years of work, was able to get the Board of Commissioners to commit to the $5.5 million, which we now are putting into the library. It was with, actually more than that, it's over $7 million that we're going to commit to the library. But it was with her push and just her gentle, just the way she does things. She's very gentle, very kind, and kind of was able to get everybody to listen to her and see the need for a new library. Not a new library, but for a for the renovation of the library. So I want to thank her very much for that, for leading the charge on that. I know she's retiring, and she's just been fantastic at the library. I also wanted to touch on a point that Larry Holmes made, and that was that we really have a lot of good people coming into this township, and we're seeing it in these interviews. We're seeing volunteers come in like we've never seen before. We have seen just well-educated people coming in, at the stock of people that we have coming into this township, and younger people are coming in for interviews. And it's just really, really goes to show you like how this township is changing, how it is becoming more, the younger generation is moving into the township, and this is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring younger people raising property values in the township, and was very promising in those interviews. And I have nothing further.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Secretary, do you have anything to add to the board?
I can certainly mention a few things, but a couple big programs that are coming up. I'll just remind the board that you'll be voting on within the next month or two. The two big initiatives, again, were grants. You recall we received a CMAQ grant, a little over $500,000, and a multimodal transportation grant, which is also to help with improved stormwater management. Again, that program will be, that total grant will be roughly about $600,000. There'll be starting this year. The big one is going to be the multimodal transportation grant that will go from the middle school all the way down to Mill Road, addressing stormwater management, improving sidewalks, as the aesthetics of that particular area. And the CMAQ is the traffic adaptive that will go all through Westchester Pike. The traffic adaptive system that we received a grant at the Triangle, now it's been operating, Deputy Chief, about 2 weeks now?
Yes, 2 weeks.
And it's been a noticeable improvement. So we're excited to be out in those two big. And if there are major projects that will take a lot of time and effort, we'll be completing them. Again, the big one is going to be the multimodal transportation that's going to go out on bid. It has to start literally the day after school and be complete by the time the school year starts again in September. So they're the two big ones. As well as numerous other little small projects. And an exciting time to get this done. Again, utilizing proper grant money. This town is, as this board knows, we try to promote that all the time. This board has done more road restoration and infrastructure improvement and advances and enhancements to this community in the history of this township. That's a fact. All by doing, in the last 9 years, we were able to reduce $6 million. Our budget would be $6 million more today if we didn't make the changes in the way we do business. So I applaud this board and my staff in giving us the support to make those consolidations, and we're continuing to look for initiatives that continue those goals. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And in closing up the meeting, I would just like to also express to Christine, thank you very much for her service to the community, and my condolences to the Zlotnick and also the Petrosian family for their losses. This month is also Black History Month, And, it's surprising. The more and more I read the different stories through Black history, the more it's obvious that, there are a lot of game changers that were out there, big names, and you hear all through history. But these little stories are so unique that just the little people, that do things in life that change the game without anybody ever knowing it. So to, our young Black community, that keep it up. Always express yourself and always move forward. Keep your passion growing. Also this month I'm wearing red for cardio awareness for both women and men. So everybody, please exercise a little bit more, because not only do we get to that age where we need to, but you don't know what could happen tomorrow. So live today like it's your last?
That's
I
right.
hope not.
Your last day.
Live today, live for the best, and go to the stadium and exercise and skate, please.
There every week.
Or take a walk in one of our parks.
walk.
One of our beautiful trails.
Absolutely. Well, this board will reconvene on Monday, March 6th at 7 p.m. for the work session, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.